fucking go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So, The Boys Season 5 Episode 4 just dropped. And man, what an absolute roller coaster of an hour. Now, I know some people might be saying, hey, it feels a little quieter than the giant bloody explosions we got in the first 3 weeks. But honestly, do not let the lack of exploding buildings fool you. This episode is a ticking time bomb. It is densely packed with so much crazy stuff, and it is doing the heavy lifting to set up what looks like a devastating season finale. We've got lifelong friendships breaking apart at the seams, characters snapping under the psychological pressure of this war, and some massive blink-and-you-miss-it clues for how this whole series is going to end. Showrunner Eric Kripke is an absolute master at balancing the gory, gross-out spectacle with quiet, horrifying character studies, and this episode fires on all cylinders. Plus, we have to talk about the ending. Something happens to Homelander in this episode that changes the power dynamic of the entire Boys universe completely. I'm talking about his ultimate, real weakness finally being exposed. Not a PR weakness, not a psychological weakness, a physical one. It's a moment we have been waiting 5 years for. And how Billy Butcher handles this discovery, well, we've got a lot of theories to unpack. So grab a snack, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's dive right into everything you might have missed, the comic Easter eggs, and the hidden details in this insane episode. Alright, let's start with the guy who needs therapy more than anyone else on the planet, and probably the therapist too, Homelander. We pick up right after the brutal events of last week, and he's just casually staring at a photo of his son, Ryan. And he is genuinely, actually shocked that Ryan survived when he literally smashed the kid's head in. You know, just classic, wholesome father-son bonding. It's giving major Invincible vibes. In that universe, Viltrumites violently beat up their kids to near death just to test how strong they are. For Homelander, almost fatally abusing his kid is just a weird, twisted way of showing he cares. He has no frame of reference for love that doesn't involve violence. Yikes. Then Firecracker walks into the room, and if you have a good eye for visual storytelling, you definitely noticed her outfit. It is basically the exact same controversial, ultra-revealing suit that Starlight was forced to wear back in Season 1. The ankle-breaking high boots, the deeply plunging bodysuit, it's a really cool, tragic contrast. Annie hated that suit. She rejected it the second she realized how toxic the Seven were, because it represented her being objectified by a corporation. But Firecracker? She absolutely revels in the corruption. She loves the attention. It's a tragic full-circle moment, especially when you remember that it was Annie's childhood rumor about Firecracker that essentially set her down this dark, desperate path for validation in the first place. It's identity theft, mixed with ideological warfare. But Homelander isn't even paying attention to her creepy cosplay. He uses his super smell and instantly realizes she smells like his dad, Soldier Boy. She panics, because who wouldn't, and tries to lie, saying it's a new perfume called General E's Secret. First of all, that is a hilarious and historically traitorous naming choice that perfectly fits her far-right brand. It's so on the nose for Vought's merchandising. But Homelander doesn't even care that she's lying. Why? Because his ego has completely detached from reality. He confidently declares that he was visited by an angel, and that he is the actual Messiah. He is no longer just a corporate superhero, he is building a full-blown religious cult. This leads to one of the sharpest, funniest, and creepiest satirical scenes in the whole show. Vought is having a literal writer's room meeting to rebrand Homelander as a religious leader. Sister Sage, Ashley, and Oh Father are sitting around tossing out wild PR ideas on a whiteboard. They suggest parting the Red Sea for refugees, which completely misses the humanitarian point of the Moses story, and turns it into a cheap magic trick. They even talk about baptizing Elon Musk for the engagement metrics. And oh father, this guy's involvement is purely financial. He's $150 million in debt because of his lavish lifestyle. A brilliant nod to real-world televangelists who buy private jets with donation money. He's totally fine swapping out traditional Christianity for Homelander as God, as long as the Vought checks keep clearing. By the end of the meeting, the PR team physically places Homelander directly in front of a crucifix, symbolically replacing God with America's ultimate fascist icon. It is super dark, but it's a chilling reminder of the show's core theme, how easily faith, patriotism, and media can be co-opted by corporations for absolute power. Speaking of bad dads, the theme of toxic fatherhood bleeds through every single frame of this episode. Let's check in on Billy Butcher. He takes a very battered, confused Ryan back to his grimy base to heal. Butcher, trying to relate to the kid, tries to make a cool Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back joke, comparing their dynamic to Darth Vader leaving his son at death's door. But Ryan just stares at him. He doesn't get the reference. Why? Because his mom, Becca, heavily censored his media intake growing up on that fake Vought compound. She only let him watch incredibly safe, feel-good movies like Regarding Henry. Imagine being the most powerful teenager on Earth, and your pop culture knowledge is limited to nice 90s Harrison Ford movies. It's funny, but it's also deeply sad. It shows how isolated Ryan really is from the real world. Butcher wants Ryan to have his Dagobah moment. He wants to forge this kid into a weapon to use against Homelander. He is looking at Ryan like a tool, not a traumatized boy. He looks around and realizes that nobody, not Homelander, not Vought, and not even Butcher, actually cares about him as a human being. So he runs away. Guys, this is huge. This completely changes things from the comic books. In the comics, the Ryan equivalent has a very different, much shorter storyline. By having him run off, the show makes us wonder, who is actually going to be the key to taking Homelander down now? Is Ryan going to become a wild card third faction? Well, it might just be Granddad. Soldier Boy is back, and his return brings out the absolute worst in everyone. Sister Sage masterfully manipulates him. She knows he has a bruised ego and a deep-seated hatred for the soft modern world, so she plays him like a fiddle, pointing him like a loaded gun toward Fort Harmony. When Soldier Boy and Homelander finally cross paths, it is just pathetic to watch, in a great acting way. It's a battle of unresolved daddy issues. Homelander, the most terrifying being on the planet, suddenly acts like a little kid desperately begging for his dad's approval. He literally points at his costume like, "Look, I wear an eagle just like you, we're the same." But Soldier Boy offers zero empathy. He just smirks, mocks Homelander's cape, and completely reduces him to a disappointing, weak mistake. It is the exact same cycle of abuse. Soldier Boy is just treating Homelander the exact same way his own wealthy, dismissive father treated him back in the 1930s. The generational trauma cycle in this family is just Soldier Boy's dad, Soldier Boy, Homelander, Ryan. It never stops. While all that superhero family drama is happening in the stratosphere, Annie, Starlight, gets what is easily the most emotionally grounded and tragic subplot of the week. She finally reunites with her estranged father after 20 years. But it is not a happy reunion, because she uncovers a devastating reality. Her own half-brother, Mason, is completely and totally indoctrinated by Vought's propaganda machine. Mason's bedroom is a walking billboard for the modern manosphere. He's wearing chromacopia merch. He has giant posters of Firecracker on his wall. And get this, he religiously listens to the Deeps podcast. Yes, Vought gave the Deep a podcast, and it is entirely about semen retention and Sigma male grindset garbage. Just let the absurdity of that sink in for a second. The fish guy is giving out alpha male life advice. Because of this echo chamber, Mason fully believes all the vicious fake news lies that Vought spins about Annie blowing her way to the top of the seven. This storyline heavily mirrors the themes of X2, X-Men United. Remember that famous scene where Iceman's parents ask, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" It's the exact same vibe. It shows how government-pushed anxieties and algorithm-driven echo chambers can cause a person's own family to fear and reject them. What makes it worse is that Annie's dad is actually on her side. He is secretly a Starlighter, but he has to hide his true beliefs because he works as a local police deputy. And right now, the police force acts as a militarized arm of Homelander's oppressive, fascist regime. If he steps out of line, his entire family could be sent to a freedom camp. We even see him looking at an old ticket stub for Dawn of the Seven and her childhood pageant clippings. It's a scary reminder of the immense pressure she was under as a kid. But it also highlights the terrifying, ground-level impact of Homelander's rule. It poses a really tough question for the show. You can punch a superhero with super strength, but how do you punch an ideology? How do you fight a system that has brainwashed a nation's youth to the point where teenagers are ready to report their own sisters to the secret police? Okay, let's pivot to the core action mission of the episode. The boys head to a heavily guarded abandoned base called Fort Harmony. Their goal? Find V1, an incredibly early, unstable prototype of Compound V, so they can finally get their anti-Supe virus up and running. First off, we have to shout out the wardrobe department. Mother's Milk is rocking an amazing vintage salt and pepper shirt, and Hughie is wearing Air Supply. It's a great aesthetic. But the good vibes literally end right there. The moment they step onto the grounds, this location turns into a survival horror video game. It is giving off massive The Last of Us and 28 Days Later vibes. The woods are littered with dead animals and bodies because a mutated strain of V1 leaked into the groundwater decades ago. Now, the local plant life is shooting off these toxic spores. If you breathe them in, they cause extreme, uncontrollable aggression, paranoia, and hatred. You basically violently turn on whoever is closest to you. It's an incredible, visceral metaphor for Vought's overarching impact on American society, injecting a poison into the water supply that makes neighbors tear each other apart. Also, fun comic book fact, this is a brilliant callback to Mother's Milk's original origin story. In the comics, his mother was exposed to Compound V while working at a polluted Vought dog food cannery, which led to a massive, tragic mutation in his family. It's a great nod for the hardcore fans. As the spores infect the boys, the polite filters come off and brutal home truths come out. Hughie, completely high on the toxins, drops his meek, nice guy persona and viciously lashes out at Butcher and Mother's Milk. Butcher claps back, brutally mocking Hughie for accidentally turning his dad into a brain-dead zombie earlier in the season. Kimiko gets so enraged, she nearly kills Frenchie, bending solid steel bars with her bare hands. This entire sequence is a dark, twisted mirror of the famous helicarrier argument in the first Avengers movie, where Loki's spear makes all the heroes turn on each other. But here, it feels so much more personal and dangerous. But guys, pay very close attention to this scene. This is massive foreshadowing for the Vought Ennis comic books. In the comics, the team's dynamic completely shatters when Butcher takes his crusade too far. It leads to a tragic, incredibly bloody climax where Butcher essentially hunts down his own team. Seeing Hughie actually threaten to kill Billy, and hearing Frenchie hint at a doomed, Romeo and Juliet-style fate for him and Kimiko. Yeah, the writers are laying the terrifying groundwork for a devastating series finale. I am officially scared for all of them. Amidst all the heavy apocalyptic drama, we have to take a minute to talk about the Deep. The guy is just on a masterclass downward spiral. He is so utterly desperate for Homelander's validation that he is completely alienating the only person in Vought Tower who actually tolerates him, the new Black Noir. Noir 2.0 is still the funniest background gag on the show. He is a Juilliard-trained actor who is so committed to his method acting that he falls asleep standing up in his suit because he's trying to find his motivation as a silent assassin. But even he is starting to see the cracks. Noir straight up points out the obvious to the Deep. He tells him, "Hey man, you are throwing away a genuine friendship for a psychopathic leader who only loves himself." Does the Deep listen? Of course not. He actually forces himself to eat his beloved sea creatures, which we know he can communicate with, just to prove to Homelander that he is a loyal soldier to the regime. It's a tragic, pathetic arc for a character who absolutely refuses to learn or grow. It clearly shows that blind loyalty to Homelander only leads to total isolation and self-destruction. At this rate, with how frustrated Noir 2.0 is getting, I wouldn't be surprised if the new Noir just snaps and takes the Deep out himself before the season is over. Alright, let's talk about that explosive climax at Fort Harmony, because the reveals here are going to reshape the rest of the season. First, Frenchie and the team finally crack open the vault, only to find that the V1 prototype is entirely gone. Butcher and MM put their heads together and deduce that the base's defenses were so lethal, the only Supe who could have possibly survived stealing it decades ago is a guy named Bombsight. For those who don't follow the casting news, Bombsight is a character played by Mason Dye. You probably know him from Stranger Things. And he is slated to be a main character in the upcoming 1950s set prequel spin-off called Vought Rising, alongside Soldier Boy and Stormfront. This heavily ties the current events of the boys into the lore of the upcoming spin-off. It's brilliant synergy, but it raises a huge question. Why would someone steal the V1? Could Vought be using it to revive a seemingly dead Supe? Maybe Stormfront? Her off-screen death in Season 3 has always felt highly suspicious to me. The pieces are definitely moving on the board, and I think we're going to see a zombie Supe very soon. But meanwhile, the biggest moment of the episode happens. Soldier Boy manages to lure Homelander into a specialized testing cell and locks him inside. The secret to the trap? The walls are laced with enriched uranium. Guys, this is Homelander's ultimate kryptonite. This pulls heavy inspiration from DC Comics. specifically Superman's Flashpoint storyline, or whenever Kal-El is kept weak under red solar radiation. For the first time in the entire run of the series, the indestructible god is left weak, sweating, and totally vulnerable. Soldier Boy's plan wasn't just to kill his son, it was to humiliate him. He wanted to expose him to the one thing that can hurt him, and destroy the V1 so Homelander could never achieve true godlike immortality. And then, the cherry on top, Butcher discovers Homelander in this weakened state. The banter and the eye contact between Karl Urban and Anthony Starr here is absolutely electric. It is a beautiful callback to their epic stare-down at the end of Season 3, but the roles are reversed. Homelander is the one trapped. Butcher knows that high-level radiation can literally burn Compound V right out of the Supes' veins. The million-dollar question for the rest of the season is this: will Butcher use this uranium knowledge to depower Homelander once and for all? Or will his own V-induced brain tumors get the better of him before he can pull the trigger? The episode ends with the boys driving away in their van, battered and bruised. And hilariously, the soundtrack kicks in with Lou Bega's Mambo No. 5, because nothing says we all just almost murdered each other in a toxic forest quite like a cheesy, upbeat 90s dance song. It just proves that Eric Kripke has an unmatched ear for ironic needle drops. So the board is officially set for a catastrophic showdown. Homelander broke out of the cell, but his invincibility has been permanently challenged. He knows he can die now. Soldier Boy is back in the wind as a rogue agent. The virus is delayed because the V1 is missing, and the boys are barely holding it together as a team. What did you guys think of this massive episode? Do you think Butcher will cross the line and hunt down his own team like in the comics? And who do you think stole the V1? Let's discuss all your theories in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe for more weekly boys breakdowns, and I will see you guys in the next video.